Welcome back to Face the State. Let's talk about Senator Dodd's political situation. Rob Simmons is the only announced candidate, but there are 4 men thinking of challenging Dodd. In addition to Simmons, there is State Senator Sam Caligiuri of Waterbury, former U.S. Ambassador to Ireland Thomas Foley of Greenwich, and CNBC anchor Larry Kudlow of Reading. With us today is our duo of political analysts, Dubie McDowell and Brian Flaherty. Dubie and Brian, welcome back.
Thank you.
So first, let's talk about the developments of this past week. How bad is this going to hurt Senator Dodd that it looks like he flip-flopped about the AIG issue and the loophole in the legislation as we go in, Dubie?
Well, what always concerns me is that we go on headlines and we go on catchphrases, and flip-flop came across. So I think, to give you a straightforward answer, I think it was a very difficult week for him. But I think it's also a very difficult situation to explain and to get your full message out in our, era of sound bites and quick headlines.
But when the last poll showed that 42% of the state didn't trust him and 41% did, I can't see that going up in the next poll after this past week. Brian, do you agree?
Well, you're going to see where we're going to be. It's the Sunday after St. Patrick's Day this year. Where will we be the Sunday after St. Patrick's Day next year? What will the top headline be in the Hartford Courant and all the other stories? This certainly has not been a good run of weeks for Senator Dodd. And if you look at the model of a long-in-the-tooth incumbent and an upstart Republican coming along and taking him out, that's exactly what Rob Simmons did to Sam Gadenson a few years back. So that is Rob Simmons' story. He's done it. He knows it. But I think the difference you have, to be fair to the senator, is he's acting like a politician who understands that he's got to get on the stick. And he's on the press. He was on this show last week. He's been getting around. But he has a lot of questions to answer. And he really hasn't been put in a position most of his career that he's had to answer them.
As we were listening to Rob Simmons, I was thinking, okay, we're 19 months out. When we were 19 months out from the 2006 Senate race, which viewers will remember, was that big Lieberman-Lamont race. We were 19 months out. Joe Lieberman was the most popular politician in the state. So much, I know we keep saying it, but so much can change in such a short period of time. And this is obviously extremely tense period in our state history and our U.S. history. And right now, the big story is, let's be mad at Chris Dodd.
But Senator Dodd needs some good news, and it's certainly not coming anytime soon. It doesn't look to be anyway. This AIG thing is only getting worse. People are furious about it. What would you tell him to do if you were his consultant, let's say?
I would tell him to continue to do shows like yours and to speak to reporters and go around the state and talk to people, because he knows this state as well as anybody does, and he can make his own case far better than anybody else can. And I think when people hear him and hear his explanations and don't just read columns and stories that are very much part of this sort of let's get excited and tear down Chris Dodd, we may have a weak incumbent, then I think it'll make a big difference.
Some folks are saying that we may see it from a newspaper column, an editorial in the weeks to come, that someone will call for it's time for Senator Dodd to retire. And I know a lot of Republicans, I was talking to Chris Healy today about it, he said, no, we want him to stay in because this is good for us. Brian, do you agree?
Well, I think the Republicans, sure. You mentioned it to Rob. This is a Democratic state by registration, and Rob, I think, answered the question quite well. He ran and won in the most Democratic district held by a Republican congressman in recent history. I think there's a larger issue going on here, too, in terms of for the Republicans looking at this whole situation. There is outrage right now. It is real. But there will be more AIGs between now and Election Day. There's a little scapegoating going on, but I think this is the first fumble. In some ways, this has taken the president off of his agenda. Democrats are attacking Democrats. What did Chris Dodd do when he went back on to say, oh, wait a minute, I didn't do it. It was the administration. And he was joined right after that by Ron Wyden, a senator from Oregon, pointing fingers at the White House. I think the next unemployment story coming out of Washington is probably going to be Tim Geithner. If I'm Chris Dodd, I think I want that to happen very, very soon. So now you have, and will this continue, of the Democrats going after the Democrats and then starting really dusting up when there's a lot to get done. And there is a big banking bill that's still yet to come down the pike.
Senator Dodd says that, he does plan on running in 2010, but You know, Dubious, you know him. If new polls come out showing the numbers to continue to go down, do you ever see a point where he might say, you know what, I am not going to lose like my father in that last year, and I want to go out at least as a sitting senator rather than one who's lost?
I don't think anybody wants to go out under a cloud, and certainly, you know, but to me, going out under a cloud would be dropping out and saying, I'm not going to run again. I think this is somebody who, you know, has fought successfully for Connecticut for many years, and, you know, run races that have not been all that challenging because there was such, you know, he was seen as so invincible in many ways. So this is going to be a different kind of race, certainly. But I'd be very surprised if he didn't run again. And just to go back to your other point, that we may see calls from a Democrat or two that he not run again. I think you will, and I think that would be very normal. I think it just hasn't been normal in this state with this certain politician who has been such a force for so many years.
With all due respect to Rob Simmons, he is coming off a loss. He's not exactly a fresh face because he's been here before.
Yeah, I did have to laugh when he said something about a new face coming forward. I thought Rob is not, with all due respect, is not a new face.
And some of these, you know, well-known senators, Elizabeth Dole to name, you know, they've kind of been knocked off by unknowns. Do you perhaps see another Republican coming into the picture? Maybe one of the other ones, maybe a Sam Caligiuri or perhaps an Ambassador Foley as the candidate to watch?
Well, I know two of the three other gentlemen who are interested in getting into the race. I served with Rob in the state legislature. And you have right now a Republican Party in the state of Connecticut that is sitting up a little bit straighter. By the way, that still has the governor's office, and a very popular governor at that, but is now looking at, okay, now it's our party's turn. We've got a bunch of people who want to do this. Rob Simmons, I think, jumps out as the front runner. Sam Caligiuri's got a good story to tell from Waterbury. Ambassador Foley as well. And so now all of a sudden, again, this is going to be the first competitive race I think that Chris Dodd has had in the U.S. Senate. We could try and name all the people that had run against him.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to be the head of the Democratic Party in this state right now, just for that reason, that all these senators in waiting suddenly are now getting a little bit nervous.
I say the more the merrier. I mean,
well, it's good for the media to have a good race,
well,
certainly, as you know.
Good for the media, but as Rob Simmons said, you know, if there's a brutal Republican primary, well, I, as a Democrat, would be very happy to see that.
Doobie and Brian, we have to roll some commercials. We'll be right back.